Welcome to the Place of Rest, where our aim is to give you language that helps you displace the growing confusion, chaos, and dis-ease of our times. My name is Jonathan Boyce, and it's my pleasure to bring to you today's episode. Virginia and returning guest Katherine Dang discuss the key to the liberty of our dis-ease and discomforts, and where this key is found. We hope you enjoy today's conversation.
Katherine, thank you for joining me for another segment. I'd like to have a conversation that revolves around principles of liberty and governance, emphasizing the importance of natural law, virtue, and religion in maintaining a free society. There's this amazing website, and I think it's called liberty.com, the story of liberty.com. And I wanted our listening audience to be able to access it. But I was interested in discussing these ideas.
Sure, well, let's give it a try.
The 28 principles of liberty that they cover in this particular website progressed over a period of 200 years. And you hold that they've been in place since the beginning of time. But the fullest expression of those principles is this republic. That's why everyone has always wanted to flock to America, because it is the fullest expression of liberty. And the hunger for liberty is woven into the soul of man. It's part of our very Constitution. But the first principle they mention is natural law, that it is the only reliable basis for sound government and just human relations, as stated by Thomas Jefferson. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I like to think in terms of not natural law, because that deals with what's natural to man. I like to think of the law of nature, because nature refers to creation. And when the Creator put everything into existence, everything he made, he added a law to it. Now, what is a law? A law is a rule of action. So the planets, the stars, space, everything in the spatial heavens operate according to a rule. They have their own rules. Mathematically, they're precise, they're exact. They act in perfection, in relationship one to the other. When he created Earth, the Earth abides and exists according to certain laws of physics, physical, material Earth. The waters, the air, the land, the plants, the animals, and man each have their own rule of action embedded in them, inherent in them. And God gave all mankind one law, just one, and that is live. Live. Eat right, work, and eat. That's what he said. Take dominion of this material, life-giving earth. That's why they call it Mother Nature, in the sense that it was created to nourish. So eat from this earth. Whatever is upon the earth is for consumption, your consumption. But replenish what you use. Don't abuse it. Don't abuse this earth that I have provided for your good and benefit material life. Now, I've also given you a life that is your own. That's your property. And you're to rule it. Rule yourself. That is, maintain life. Now, how am I going to maintain this life as long as it lives? And he says that I have given laws for life. Okay, how to maintain life. You, human life, okay? You're special. You're a special creation. And you're to reason obedience, conformity, if you will, compliance to the laws of life, the laws of diet, the laws of wisdom, the laws of decision-making. And so this is how you're going to reason. As you have mentioned, Virginia, that which preserves life, promotes life, provides life, then you eat. you do. That's your rule. And that which is poisonous, destructive, endangers life is evil. So avoid evil and do good, and you'll live. Maintain your life. And so he set down those laws for life and revealed to man what those are. And we find them in the book of life. And the Bible is often referred to as the book of life, the guideline, which preserves all life. And the more you educate yourself from that book and follow the principles to maintain physical and spiritual life, your soul's life is what you learn and educate from. So the reason we have chaos is because there is a rejection of what is recorded in that book. And that's the truth. Chaos is no government. It's anarchy. It's separation from the laws of life. And it's destructive, riotous, and dangerous. And man has to understand that there's consequences. There's no other law for life but what is established from the very beginning of mankind. And you either accept it, you believe it, or you don't. God is not a God of force. He will never impose his will, his book of life on anyone. But you have to search it for yourself because you have reason. And you make decisions, and your conscience will bear witness whether or not your decisions are lawful or not. And when you go against your own conscience, you violate it, there's a consequence. Evil has its own punishment. That's all there is to it. Destruction, decisions that destroy will destroy. You can't get around it because the law of life is absolute for everyone. It doesn't change over time. We don't evolve out of that law. It's just set. But it's a good law. It's good for everyone. Of course, we have this tendency today to rely on artificial food, on things that have preservatives that really poison our bodies and cause disease because our body rebels, or revolts against foreign agents that we put in our bodies. And no wonder we have cancers or all kinds of mental, chemical reactions from our body, and we don't pay attention what we put in, what we've decided to go against the law of life concerning our consumption even. And we followed the ways of man, secularism. Now, secularism is simply there is no such God. There is no God but man. That's all it is. I decide. Every man decides what is right in his own eyes. And we have that rebellion that is lawful laws concerning life. And God says, why will you die? Why will you choose death? Because they reject the law. They don't like to be under any law but their own. And that's what we have in human nature. And that's a decision people make without even research. You have to do your own research. When we're concerned about history or the lies you think we see, that's the confusion, the ambiguity, the lack of clarity. You have to go to original, true stories, true history. This is why I advocate R.E.S T, because we deal with your own story. Your own story. What are the events? What are the key individuals? What influences have you had that are lies and that are true? You have to get to the bottom of your own life. It's individual. It's very private and personal. And there's a way to do that. And what is, again, your emotional condition based on the lies, the consequences? And of course, what damage has it done to your spiritual, which is your soul, your will to live, your joy of life, your hope in life? And of course, what truth have you violated? And all of that comes to the fore because that's manifested in your anatomy. And it's not a chemical, it's a chemical reaction to, again, your thoughts. And again, what you take in as far as your history is concerned. And so when it comes to our own nation, let's take an example. We have not learned the true story of our nation. And we go back to the true story of your story as well. It's the same principle. And what's a proper relationship with other nations, with yourself and your citizens? All of that is a composite story, comprehensive story of how to reason. Do you reason from what is true science or false science, counterfeit science? And we need to know the difference between what is good and what is evil, what promotes. And evil has its own self-destroying ability. We don't judge it. It's just we know that it's going to lead to no story. It's going to lead to destruction of some kind or another to individuals or to nations. And so the education we get is very important, whether it's the source and origin of your learning is true or false. Go back to your own search, your own search. You're responsible for your own, really, education when you come to it. As adults anyway. And not only that, but I would say recourse. Go back to examine what is in you, you know to be true, that you have violated or what has been violated against you.
Principle number 1, beyond natural law is this concept of laws of nature.
Yes. Of creation,
which refers to creation. And at R.E.S.T, obviously, and our listeners are accustomed to this, we talk about the 3 parts of who you are.
Yes.
Your spirit, your soul, and your body. You're a triune being. And we go to great pains to displace ignorance about the inner workings of those 3 constituents, if you will, and how they impact the quality of our life.
Yes. The liberty I'm talking about is not the law of nature. Also, it refers to the liberty of your spirit, the liberty of your affections, where your attachments are, and the liberty of your
spirit, soul, and body.
Yes, right. And the key to the liberty of your discomforts, is what you have in your spirit and what is in your soul, your reasoning capacity.
Principle number 2, a free people cannot survive under a republican constitution unless they remain virtuous and morally strong, as stated by Benjamin Franklin. So the moral capacity, the virtue, the morality of the individual is instrumental in securing this constitutional republic.
Okay, if I could condense that, it means that a republic cannot exist unless the people are governed or are properly governed within themselves, that they have an ability to separate themselves from self-destroying elements of their existence. So, yes, you can say morality, but morality is right alignment with truth. Okay, aligning yourself with truth. Righteousness is justice, right? Being just, right? Rightly adjusted, rightly related in your relationships, rightly related to yourself, rightly related to truth.
And this is a very important point in the climate we find ourselves in. I want to read to you a quote. Accuse your enemy of what you're doing as you are doing it to create confusion. Karl Marx.
Exactly.
But it's really interesting. The world, when we talk about Marxism, when we talk about competing worldviews, we need to become educated as to what we're referencing.
Yeah. Please, let me interject here. Always check your sources, okay? The writers of your materials, their bibliography, if you will, but always check your sources and evaluate, because the source determines how credible they may be to your beliefs.
So there you go. If you're accusing your enemy of what you're doing, it keeps them on the defense, making it possible for you to cause more damage. And to some extent, in our anger and in our frustration, as a result of our own depravity, we've all experienced a measure of that when we've been angry.
Well, when you accuse the innocent of wrongdoing that is yours, then you do put them on defense, which is there is no answer to your defense, in the sense that innocent till proven guilty. There's no proof of it, and yet we spend our time answering false accusations.
Exactly.
That's bearing a false witness against your neighbor, which is immoral to do. That's not life-giving, it's life-destroying of yourself as well as the person you accuse. And so they're not worth an answer. I think Jesus would not answer something that was false.
It's bringing to mind, in trying to make sense of the confusion, chaos, and disease of the age, we have to understand that there is a side that is intentionally keeping us on the defense by advancing lies and false accusations. And I'm going to be frank with you. I heard an interview last week of one of the candidates, and it was repulsive. The things that were coming out of this person's mouth were absolute false accusations.
But not everyone understands that they are false unless they have been apprised and educated in original resources. And when you mention Karl Marx, people don't know who that is. They think it's an educator, some philosopher, but he basically was an atheist. So you decide. Okay, you decide from that. Consider the source, and then you will learn to rely on good sources or false sources.
And your conscience will bear witness.
Absolutely.
Principle 3, the most promising method of securing a virtuous people is to elect virtuous leaders, as stated by Samuel Adams. That means we need to determine if the source of their ideas expand life or diminish it. I think based on our last segment, that's the easiest way.
But we don't know what supports life these days. Okay? We don't have
how about babies? How about the life of the unborn child?
Yeah, they do, but to a certain degree, and that's to be
fundamental, right?
It's fundamental, but you understand that the representatives we elect represent us. And unless the people on a general scale have that discernment or have that morality themselves, they're going to elect people that are like themselves. That's what representative government is, that the only people that we have representing us reflect the people they represent. Unless we are discerning and have the same qualities, we can discern those qualities. But if we're greedy, if we are corrupt, we will elect corrupt men. And that's why the character of a people determine the quality of government they have. Elections have consequences.
Principle number 4, without religion, the government of a people cannot be maintained, as stated by George Washington.
Right. Now, the one thing that the scriptures teach about representatives is that they are to be capable men, capable leaders, men who fear God. And basically, let's look at it this way. He either his own God or he does fear a supreme being, God himself.
They're both religious worldviews, right? One is secular and the other is sacred.
Right. And so if man is God, then he is not qualified to be a leader in a republic, because he answers to no one but himself. And he's to, again, be men of truth. And men who hate covetousness, which means he cannot be bribed. So the scriptures already teach what makes a republic successful, how you keep a republic. And history tells us that the Israelites could not keep it because they were not self-governing and rejected what God had prescribed for them and chose a king instead, like other nations.
Principle 5. All things are created by God, and all mankind are equally dependent and responsible ultimately to him, because he's the ultimate lawgiver, right? And he established laws. We submit to them or not.
He's the only government there is. It says in Romans, all souls be subject to the higher powers. Kings are souls. They too are included. That if they're going to be kings, they're to be under God as a king. and to rule for him, not for themselves.
Principle 6, all mankind are equal before God, equal before the law, and equal in their rights. We expounded on that at length last segment.
That's true.
Principle 7, the proper role of government is to protect equal rights, not provide equal things as recognized by the founders.
If we go all the way back to the Magna Carta, 1215, about 200 years before the Declaration of Independence, mankind had only rights granted by government. And today we have the same thing, a right to what? A right to housing, a right to health care, a right to education. Those are government granted rights. And therefore we contract with rulers. We give you power if you give us these rights. Government granted rights are not inalienable rights. But the right to life, liberty, and property, those come from God. The Declaration of Independence is the first document that described God-given rights as superior to any other right. Everything else is government granted, which means you depend upon government for those things rather than your own ability to govern and rule your own lives.
That's why everybody wants to come to America. Principle 9, to protect human rights, God has revealed a code of divine law written in our hearts.
We're pretty shy these days to label everything as human rights, but they won't say God-given rights. And those are the only ones we are entitled to. And you depend on God in your life for all that he is able to provide. Government cannot provide what only God can provide. But he gives you a life with capacity to work, to live, to learn, to innovate, to invent on your own gifts. He gave you the ability to live according to his laws.
Human rights, secular at the discretion of man, divine rights, absolute, sacred, irrefutable.
Right.
That's what struck me about that one.
Well, they cannot be taken away except by God.
That's right. Principle 11, the majority of the people may alter or abolish a government that has become tyrannical, as stated by Thomas Jefferson. That's self-explanatory, and we're watching it happen. That's why we have rallies with over hundreds of thousands of people showing up, because they're repulsed by what's become an intrusive government. We're seeing a response to that.
The only way we alter the government is to not elect them, okay?
Right.
Not to elect, continue. And this is what the battle is our power to choose. That's our liberty, to choose without, again, dissemination. I want to go back to the idea of laws for living. God has laws for economics. God has laws for the family. God has laws for education in his scriptures. So we're not abandoned with, finding our way in the dark. They are prescriptions for success and wealth in this life. And so it's not that you do what you want, but you govern according to the laws of economics, the laws of physics, the laws of civil government. Everything he institutes has those laws attached to it that we need to learn and use.
Principle 12, the United States of America shall be a republic.
There are only two kinds of governments: monarchy and republicanism, or republic. And the most just form of government, most proper form of government for man, is a republic, not by one man's will, but by the will of the electorate, the electors, the citizens, because they are ruled by their consent, the consent of the ruled, the governed.
But those that don't believe that's the best, that are more secular in their approach, they're going to do what? accuse you of what they're doing so they can create confusion, chaos, and dis-ease and displace that. The only way to displace this, because it's natural that everyone wants to be self-governed. It's really a natural thing. It's woven within the tapestry of who we are. So to disrupt that, you literally have to lie to a people, pervert the truth and misinformation in order to create enough confusion, chaos, and dis-ease for them to forfeit that liberty. And that's what I see happening. But I'm seeing a corrective measure. People are waking up to this. Wait a minute. That's not what you said. That's not what happened. It's what you're saying, but it's not what you did. You know what I mean? People are picking up the discrepancy in that.
But they have to measure every word according to what is lawful. That's true.
Right. Exactly. All I'm saying is the revolt, the revolution that is upon us is because everything that's natural to our human condition is showing up in this republic. And yes. I guess that's the hope we have, not just in who becomes president, but what are the kind of people we're going to become in this climate we find ourselves in. And it's beautiful.
Let's go back 200 years. We cannot replace what we're seeing in communism and socialism until there is a people who are ready to be self-governed.
Right. Exactly.
And know the truth. Okay. And it's taken this long even to get this far because we went away from it over 200 years ago. And so it is the course of humanity to be slow in returning when they go astray. Okay. But that's providential in the sense that the principles are more powerful and truth is more powerful than the lie.
Exactly. And we're seeing a corrective measure taking place in an uprising. And I guess I'm inspired by that. But it's deeper than politics. It has to do with our capacity to self-govern and with these laws of nature that have been put in motion and are woven into the tapestry of who we are. I guess we see a political climate. I want people to see the internal workings of those things playing out.
All right, Virginia, don't forget that rest is just in time.
Yes.
At this time. And you came to it because of the self-government you arrived at. All right. Now listen, rest is like many other things are confluential to the good that is coming. Because we need to repair. Listen, we need to repair the damage. And that's the sickness that you are dealing with, the soul sickness, the depression, the suicides, the destruction to a new generation coming up, to children and to men and women, both, our families. But you're on time, and so are others politically, and you are on time in the healing process that is not chemical. We're not animals. We're human beings created for reasoning and liberty go together.
And followers that know my story know that this has been a 40-year pilgrimage for me. And I want them to be encouraged by the time it takes for these ideas to develop and unfold. These are generational developments.
Virginia, in the context of history, ancient and to modern, it's taken 5,000 all right, almost 6,000 years to get to you. Okay,
that's right.
How long it took. Okay,
right. And context, right? Context for our listeners. Don't be afraid. Find hope in these things. Understand that there's things of profound significance happening right now, right before our eyes. This is an amazing time to be alive, to even be able to have this discussion.
Every time is amazing, and understand the truth. As you said, is permeating, and it takes time because we are only human. And the patience, in other words, good cannot be destroyed. All right. It will find soil to plant itself. Okay. It's scattered. We scatter the truth and it lands here and there and on receptive or rejecting soil. And it's liberty working out the belief, okay? Liberty to believe and liberty not to believe. liberty to return or not return, liberty to choose life or not, and go our own prodigal way. It's very individual.
And therein lies the beauty of this republic. Thank you, Katherine.
We hope listening to this episode has brought you closer to experiencing the freedom of wholeness and healing. If you have questions or comments about today's episode, or for updates about R.E.S.T, please visit our Instagram or Facebook at The Place of R.E.S.T. If you would like more information about Virginia, or to support and join the cause of R.E.S.T, please go to theplaceofrest.com/donate or call 949-289-5935. Thank you for listening to R.E.S.T with Virginia Dixon. We'll see you next week.